Hi, I'm Astral Sagas, and welcome to another episode of the origin story of cartoons. Lord Farquaad from Shrek is actually Snow White's son. Let me explain why I think so. First, Lord Farquaad has a magic mirror in his room that looks exactly like the one Snow White's stepmother had. This suggests he might have inherited it from his mother, who could be Snow White. Second, if you look closely at Lord Farquaad's outfit, it resembles Snow White's dress. The darker twist is that Lord Farquaad is short, like the dwarves in Snow White's story. We know that Snow White lived with 7 dwarves, so it's possible that Lord Farquaad is actually the child of one of the dwarves and Snow White. Now, which dwarf does Lord Farquaad resemble? I think he looks like Grumpy. Remember how Grumpy was always grumpy and angry, just like Lord Farquaad? Even his outfit is similar. Red with a black belt, just like Grumpy's. So what do you think? You'll go crazy if you find out that the dragon in Shrek is actually a person. In Shrek 2 Wak, there's a part early on that explains how Fiona turns into an ogre at night because of a curse. But why didn't they mention this in the first movie? In the first Shrek, the story also starts with a book that talks about a blonde princess under a curse. What does this curse do? It turns the blonde princess into a pink dragon at night, just like Fiona's curse. So, this means that during the day, the blonde princess is a human, but after sunset, she turns into a dragon. Here's where the theory gets interesting. All the knights who tried to rescue Fiona from the dragon probably thought it was best to do it at night, assuming the dragon would be asleep. But they were wrong. Nighttime is exactly when the blonde princess would transform into the dragon. What do you think? The story of Coraline is actually based on real events. The animated movie is about a young girl who becomes extremely bored with her dull life and discovers a magical world. In that world, there is a dangerous witch who steals children's souls, sews buttons onto their eyes, and turns them into dolls. The movie's story is adapted from a book by Neil Gaiman, who was inspired by a real-life event that was even scarier. So what's the original story? One day, a young girl's house caught fire, and her parents died in the blaze. Her mother's spirit managed to save the girl from the fire, and the girl was taken to a cabin in the woods, where she was kept prisoner. Rumors began spreading in the town about a witch living in the forest cabin, practicing dark magic. The witch never let anyone see the girl or leave the house. Curious young people decided to investigate and entered the cabin. Inside, they found a chaotic, abandoned house full of bones. When they opened the first room, they discovered a cradle with a burnt child inside, its eyes sewn with buttons. Horrified, they fled and alerted the police. When the police arrived, they arrested the old woman and found more evidence of crimes, including the bones of another missing child and several books on witchcraft. The old woman confessed that she couldn't save her own children from the fire, only their lifeless bodies. Desperate and lonely, she used dark magic to try and bring their souls back, which is why she sewed buttons on the children's eyes. Have you ever wondered where all the creativity and characters, especially Disney princesses, come from? Do you recognize this drawing? It's Chewbacca from Star Wars. Or how about this one? Yes, it's Puss in Boots. And this one reminds you of the hippogriff from Harry Potter, right? What's the story behind these drawings? In the 19th century, a great artist named Gustave Doré emerged in France, creating around 10,000 illustrations during his career. He's known as the father of comic strips and has been a huge source of inspiration for Hollywood and animation companies like Disney. In 1935, Walt Disney, while working on stories like Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty from the Brothers Grimm, actually based many of the characters and even story elements on Doré's illustrations. But it doesn't stop there. Many other films like King Kong, Beauty and the Beast, and more have drawn inspiration from Doré's artwork. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Why do you think this episode of Tom and Jerry wasn't banned? This episode is called Blue Cat Blues. In it, Tom falls in love with a beautiful white cat and does everything he can to win her over. He even sells everything he owns to buy her a diamond ring. But when the cat sees the ring, she shows Tom a much bigger ring that a rich cat gave her. Heartbroken and hopeless, Tom drinks a lot of milk, which symbolizes alcohol. Interestingly, the same thing happens to Jerry. He also has a failed romance. In the end, both Tom and Jerry, feeling hopeless and after drinking a lot of milk, sit on train tracks, waiting for a train to run over them. This scene is practically promoting suicide to kids. So why wasn't this episode banned? Did you know that Krabby Patties are actually made from crab meat? There's a hidden message in SpongeBob SquarePants. In one episode, SpongeBob and Patrick act like cavemen and get really hungry. Patrick is so hungry that he starts eating a stick, and SpongeBob tells him not to eat it because it's stupid. Then, SpongeBob uses the stick to hit a crab, gives it to Patrick, and tells him to eat it. Patrick cooks it over a fire and loves the taste. Later, when Patrick gets hungry again, he starts looking for another crab. SpongeBob sticks his stick in the sand, shapes it like a burger, and cooks it over a fire. This seems to suggest that Krabby Patties are made from crab meat. What do you think? The story begins in 1752 in Germany. At the Hohenwart Monastery, there was a nun named Josephine Rosenthal, who was the mother of Maria Rosenthal, later known as the demonic nun. Josephine appeared to be pregnant, but she was confused and desperate because she insisted she had never been close to any man. After undergoing several tests, it was confirmed that she was still a virgin. Despite this, her pregnancy was revealed, and 8 months later, she was taken to the Benedict XIV Council, where further studies confirmed her virginity. Eventually, Father Arik declared the event a miracle, and Josephine was considered a blessed sign. She was moved to a church when she was 8 months pregnant. However, Josephine died during childbirth, leaving Maria behind. The other nuns welcomed Maria, but Benedict XIV did not accept her. It was later discovered that Josephine was a hermaphrodite, and Maria was born the same way. Over the years, Maria faced constant ridicule from some nuns and priests who saw her not as a divine being, but as something evil and unnatural. Rumors spread that Maria had both genders, and people began to fear her. As a teenager, Maria started writing a book where she detailed the abuse the nuns faced from the church. The church members grew afraid of her, fearing she would challenge their religious beliefs, so they plotted to end her life. They planned for Maria to die at the age of 33, the same age as Jesus when he died, to make it seem like a good omen. Maria discovered the plan and refused to let it happen, choosing to end her own life instead. After her death, the priests ordered the nuns to decapitate her and preserve her head in a box beside a cross, along with some writings. The box also contained a vial of blood, a lock of hair, and part of her writings about the religious mistreatment of women. And that was another episode of the origin story of cartoons. Until next time, goodbye.